Once upon a time, in a vast kingdom, there lived a wise and benevolent king who often pondered the great mysteries of life. He wanted to be a ruler who was just, wise, and effective, but uncertainty gnawed at him. One day, the king decided that to rule well, he needed to know the answers to three crucial questions. 1. What is the best time to act? 2. Who is the most important person? 3. What is the most important thing to do? The king believed that if he knew the answers to these questions, he would never fail in any decision. He issued a royal decree across the land, promising a great reward to anyone who could provide the answers. Wise men, scholars, and philosophers from all corners of the kingdom came to the palace, each offering their answers. One scholar said, "The best time to act is when you have planned everything perfectly." Another said, "The best time to act is always now, for the future is uncertain." As for the second question, one answered, "The most important person is the king's advisor." Another said, "It is the warrior who protects the kingdom." The third question drew even more varied responses. Some said the most important thing was science, others argued it was war, and yet others said it was faith. The king was dissatisfied. None of the answers felt complete or profound enough. So, he decided to seek the advice of a hermit renowned for his wisdom, who lived atop a distant mountain. This hermit was known for his refusal to speak to anyone but the humble and the poor. So, the king disguised himself as a simple peasant, leaving his royal robes and guards behind. After a long and arduous journey, the king arrived at the hermit's humble dwelling. The old man was digging in his garden, frail and bent, his face weathered with age. The king approached and said, "O wise hermit, I have come seeking answers to three questions that trouble me. What is the best time to act? Who is the most important person? And what is the most important thing to do?" The hermit listened silently but continued digging. The king, impatient, repeated his questions. Still, the hermit did not reply. Instead, he gestured at the ground, indicating the king should help with the digging. The king, though frustrated, decided to help the old man. He took the spade and began digging. Hours passed, and the king grew weary, but still, the hermit said nothing. As the sun began to set, the king spoke again. "I have labored in your garden, but you have not answered my questions." At that moment, the hermit looked up and said, "Do you hear that?" The king turned to see a man stumbling toward them from the woods, clutching his side, blood streaming from a wound. Without hesitation, the king rushed to the man, helped him to the ground, and tore part of his own tunic to bind the wound. He and the hermit worked together to clean and bandage the injury, saving the man's life. Exhausted, the king sat beside the man, who soon fell into a peaceful sleep. The next morning, the wounded man awoke and, with tears in his eyes, said to the king, "Please forgive me." The king, confused, asked, "Why do you seek my forgiveness?" The man replied, "I am your enemy. I had sworn to kill you because you executed my brother. When I heard you were coming alone to visit the hermit, I ambushed you. But your guards were nowhere, and instead, I was wounded. You saved my life. You have turned my hatred into gratitude. Please forgive me." The king, deeply moved, forgave the man and promised to restore his lands and wealth. After the man left, the king turned to the hermit one last time. "I have asked you my questions, and you have still not answered them," he said. The hermit smiled gently and said, "But you have already been answered." The king looked puzzled, so the hermit explained. 1. The best time to act was when you were digging the garden. If you had not stayed to help me, you would not have been there to save the wounded man. The most important time is always now. 2. The most important person was the man you helped. If you had not helped him, he would have died, and your opportunity for reconciliation would have been lost. The most important person is always the one you are with. 3. The most important thing to do was to help the wounded man. Compassion is always the most important action. The king bowed in gratitude, understanding for the first time the profound wisdom in the hermit's silence. He returned to his kingdom, forever changed, ruling with newfound humility and grace, knowing that life's greatest wisdom lay in the present moment, the people we meet, and the kindness we show. The story gives a moral learning lesson that the best time to act is now, The most important person is the one in front of you, and the most important thing to do is to do good for others.